Perks are meant to make the experience in Call of Duty more fun and more customizable, but sometimes they do the opposite. They make the experience more annoying. Another Call of Duty creator named B Solo recently did this topic as a YouTube short, but I figured I'd give you guys my full-fledged, full-length opinion on the subject. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos. Today, we're going to be talking about 10 perks from Call of Duty history that were just plain toxic, one way or another. So you let me know which of these perks you actually use, which one of these perks you actually hate. Drop a like. Let's see if we can hit 1,100 likes within the first 24 hours. To everybody that comments every single day, attack that like button for me. At number 10 today, starting off, most toxic perk, Martyr Dom in COD 4 and World at War. I think this is obvious. I mean, it was a perk in Call of Duty 4 and World at War that would drop a live frag grenade. Do you remember how strong frag grenades were back then? On your body whenever you were killed by either a gun or a melee attack. It was one of the cheapest things in COD history, especially since the frag grenades in the two games, like I said, were ridiculous. Frag grenades in COD 4 and WoW not only had massive blast radiuses, but they also had massive one-hit kill radiuses, which made Martyr Dom extremely deadly on maps like Shipment, Vacant, and Dome. A lot of the time, you were literally too close to avoid getting killed by it after you killed somebody, especially if you used a melee attack to finish them off. Now, I'm sure you all remember the feeling of running up on someone, stabbing them in the back, and then seeing the grenade drop to their feet. You tried to run away, but with how short the fuse was and how big the blast radius was, you literally couldn't react in time. And yes, you blew up. To me, that's super toxic. At number 9, the Serpentine in Vanguard Warzone. It's one of those perks that seemed like a decent idea on paper, but it was super toxic in practice. This perk would reduce incoming damage as long as you were sprinting, which sounds like a cool idea for survivability, but in practice, it really just meant that somebody started shooting at you, just hit your sprint button and started running in random directions to soak up more enemy bullets. I'm sure all of you remember moments in either Vanguard or Warzone when you saw somebody not paying attention, you shot them in the back a couple times for a free kill, but then right before you delivered the killing shot, they just started sprinting in circles to give themselves a health boost, and then they whipped around and melted you. You could say skill issue. I disagree. Serpentine was a toxic perk through and through. It took a ton of skill out of the game because really all it did was bail out players who weren't paying attention and gave them a get out of jail free card if they were caught with their pants down. That's toxic. At number 8, piercing vision in Vanguard and Warzone. I also remember when this perk was first added to Warzone and it took over the meta. It was a perk that would outline enemy players through walls for a few seconds, and if you put enough damage into them, you got to see them. It was annoying enough in standard Vanguard multiplayer because all someone had to do was hit you once or twice, then track your outline through the wall to finish you off. But in Warzone, somebody could put a few shots in you, get free wall hacks to see where you ran off to while you were trying to put new armor plates on, which made it basically impossible to run away from somebody who was using the perk. It was frustrating to go up against. A lot of people consider it to be a toxic part of the game because really, the only people who were using this perk were people who were just trying to blast through a wall with an LMG or a heavy assault rifle, which some would say that's toxic. Wall hacks should never be a core part of Call of Duty's experience. Just saying. At number 7, Lookout in COD World War II. Perks were reworked into basic trainings in COD World War II, but I'm still going to include a couple of them on this list because there were a few that were really screwed with the game was played, and the first is Lookout. On paper, wasn't that big a deal. Would just increase your minimap coverage and make enemy red nameplates appear further away. Cool. But if you were someone who liked to camp in one location and use a laser beam LMG or a rifle or hard scope with a sniper rifle, Lookout was probably your best friend. And if you were on the receiving end of it, you were pissed. With how big and obvious the red nameplates were in COD World War II, the Lookout perk was basically just the target finder from Black Ops 2, but on all of your guns as long as you were aiming down the sights. And since nobody was ever running smoke grenades, you could lock down entire lanes of the map entirely on your own if you were running it with a sniper rifle or LMG. It was only used by slow campy players, and it got a pretty negative reputation in the community because of that. I figured it was worth the spot, even though it's not technically a perk, but come on, basic trainings were perks, just with a different name. At number 6, Final Stand, Last Stand, Second Chance in everything. This perk has shown up so many times under different names, aliases, but you know what it is. It's a perk that lets you drop down to the ground, whip out your pistol after hitting 0 health, so you had one more chance to finish off an enemy or two. Depending on which game we're talking about, Final Stand, Last Stand, Second Chance was actually really powerful because how fast the falling animation was. Now, I remember that Black Ops 1 even make you invincible during the drop animation, and it would let teammates revive you if you stayed alive for a couple seconds. Super cheap part of Call of Duty. Thankfully, it's been removed from the experience for the most part. But if you spent any time playing COD during the Xbox 360 or PS3 era, you probably remember lots of frustrating deaths to Final Stand. F you, Final Stand, yeah, woo! Now we arrive at the top 5. Frag Times 3 and COD 4. To this day, I'm not sure why Infinity Ward thought this perk was good, especially considering how powerful the frag was. But they put it in the final build of the game, and here we are. It's now one of the most toxic perks ever because of that. Frag Times 3 would just spawn you in with 3 frag grenades instead of 1 every single time you spawn in. That meant every time you spawned, you would just hit the right bumper 3 times and probably get between 1 to 4 insta-kills for some streaks. On smaller maps like Shipment, it was dominating the entire lobby because of how easy it was to spawn in, throw 3 grenades, die, and do it again. It was like a prototype version of the one-man army noob tubes. And don't worry, we're going to talk about that. But as for right now, Frag Times 3 is absolutely one of the most toxic perks in COD history, and it deserves to be in the top 5. If you're running Frag Times 3 on Shipment or Wet Work, you should uninstall your game. Just uninstall it. At number 4, Recon Pro in Modern Warfare 3 2011. Has to be one of the most obnoxious things ever put in a Call of Duty game, especially if you were a search player or if you spent a lot of time in the face-off playlist. Recon Pro would paint enemy players on your minimap, as well as your teammates' minimaps, if they were hit by an explosive or damaged in any way, and their direction would be revealed. Basically, all you had to do was throw a flashbang or an EMP across the map, tag a bunch of enemy players, and you would have a free Blackbird for about 10 seconds. It made it impossible to lose the round. If you played in the face-off playlist, you probably remember how annoying it was to start a round of search and destroy, only to get immediately flashbang from across the map, and then your location would be painted on the enemy team's minimap for them to run up and shoot you in the face. It was busted, it was cheap, and it was toxic. At number 3, Danger Close Pro in Modern Warfare 2 2009. It would greatly increase your explosive damage and your killstreak damage, which that was a big deal in a game like Modern Warfare 2 where the explosive and killstreak damage was already juiced. Danger Close Pro was basically just eliminating the chance of getting hit markers on enemy players when using some kind of explosive, which more or less meant the entire blast radius of your noob tube was an insta-kill. With how massive the blast radius of explosives already were in this Michael Bay video game, Danger Close Pro just made the explosive playstyle even more powerful. It led to a lot of people just running explosives as their main weapon instead of a gun. I mean, why get good at aiming and shooting when you just run Danger Close Pro and get insta-kills, all day? Super toxic. At number 2, Requisitions in COD World War II. It was seemingly meant to be a basic training to replace the classic support strike package, but it ended up making domination and hardpoint matches a complete crap show in the second half. Requisitions would make it so your score streaks didn't reset upon death, but they could only be earned once per match, and they were more expensive. It sounds okay. But then you ran into people running requisitions with the most expensive and devastating streaks in the game on the smallest maps, and it would turn round 2 of domination into this just festival of explosions because everybody would be calling in gunships, paratroopers, artillery strikes, and everything else that they weren't actually good enough to earn, but they'd saved up enough score in to call with requisitions. It got to the point, the Sledge started making jokes on Twitter about how laggy the requisition streak spam was making maps like Shipment. It wasn't a joke. And at number 1, the most toxic perk in COD history, hands down, easy pick, One Man Army Pro in Modern Warfare 2 2009. Yep, literally only used by people trying to get cheap grenade launcher nukes. I mean, there's no other reason to use this perk. Was there anyone who ran One Man Army Pro and didn't just use it to replenish your grenade launchers? You guys know what the perk was. You know the legacy of it. It'll let you change your class without dying, and this meant you could give yourself infinite grenade launcher ammo just by swapping back and forth between 2 noob tube classes. It was a legitimate strategy in Modern Warfare 2 to spawn in the match, find a safe place to stand, then fire noob tubes across the map while infinitely replenishing your ammo with One Man Army, and then you'd eventually get a nuke. Hands down, the most toxic perk in COD history. You're never going to convince me otherwise. It's one thing to have an annoying perk or a perk that caters to being annoying as a playstyle, but One Man Army Pro is a perk that was literally only used by toxic players going for noob tube nukes. There's no other reason to use it, and for that, it gets the top spot. It was an exclusively toxic perk with no redeeming qualities. Let me know one perk that didn't make the list, guys. I'll see you soon.